Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Greg Kahn, and I'm the CEO of the IoT Consortium at GK Digital Ventures. Thank you for joining us on this afternoon. I know everybody's schedule is packed with CES and Zoom and Microsoft team meetings that can last well into the evening. We have a fantastic group of executives here today and look forward to a lively and engaging discussion on the current state of connected mobility. I'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor, Hitachi, and my partner in this event, Beverly Ryder, who I'll introduce in a few minutes. But first, I'd like to share some thoughts kind of leading into today's session. If we could turn it to the next slide. Today, we're in a period that I'm calling the now normal, where everything has changed in society. When we had a similar session about a year ago, it was incredible to think about the changes that were taking place in connected and autonomous vehicles. But now, with the COVID pandemic, everything has changed, and there are new opportunities and, of course, challenges. So some thought starters leading into today as we're in the now normal period, if we can move it to the next slide. COVID has been an accelerant to both the connected mobility and transportation industry, as well as a suppressor. Pete Buttigieg, nominated as U.S. Department of Transportation's head, is very notable. We can expect a lot more attention and interest in connected transportation and infrastructure in the United States in the year to come. If we can move it to the next slide. Ride sharing and carpooling has declined significantly over the year due to COVID. With public and private initiatives working to improve mobility, multimodal transport will undoubtedly shape our travels, our cities, and society for decades to come. And as artificial intelligence, 5G connectivity, and edge computing mature, vehicle connectivity will accelerate. If we can move it to the next slide. It wouldn't be CES if we didn't share some notable statistics. So per IDC, the worldwide shipment of internet-connected vehicles is expected to reach nearly 76 million units by the year 2023. Per Statista, North America is expected to own 29% of the world's self-driving fleet by 2035. According to the CTA, in 2021, electric bikes will reach 1.6 million units, up 60%, and 2.6 billion in revenue, up 44%. And according to Deloitte, the average American will spend about 34 hours sitting in traffic. That's 5.5 billion hours for all commuters. If we can move it to the next slide. So where do we go from here? As we talk today about connected electric and autonomous vehicles, we'll have a discussion about every industry that is affected by this shift. And I'll just name a couple here. Micromobility. What's the role of bikes, e-scooters, and skateboards in our now normal society? The economics. Who will pay for all of these investments? Will it be states and cities that charge for miles traveled to compensate for the loss of tax revenue related to parking tickets? Media. We'll talk about in-vehicle multimedia consumption, which is primed to grow exponentially. Will gaming become a big force? Cybersecurity. How will the industry ensure that connected vehicles are secure from cyber attacks? Healthcare. Can autonomous vehicles help improve access to healthcare? Will there be reduced need for emergency medical services and EMTs? Smarter cities. How will cities be reimagined as transportation morphs? Retail. How will e-commerce grow with connected and autonomous vehicles? Mass transit. How can buses, trains, and subways ensure safety and convenience going forward? Airspace. How will airspace be managed and monetized? Can airplanes and drones coexist? 5G. What bandwidth requirements and processing power will be needed to meet increased demands for connectivity? Real estate. How will parking garages and gas stations be repurposed? Edge computing. How will vehicle manufacturers handle, process, and analyze the amazing amounts of data and make critical decisions quickly? Managing the curb. What new services and economic models will be developed to accommodate curbside delivery and pickup? Insurance. What insurance shift will occur from personal liability to catastrophic systems failure? Shipping and logistics. What supply chain changes will need to be made to ensure seamless shipping and delivery? And last but certainly not least, energy? Will there be reduced energy consumption and emissions from improved vehicle efficiency? Will hydrogen or electric win out? Wow, there is a lot to talk about today. Before I introduce my co-host and partner in crime in today's session, Beverly, just a few notes on how this session is going to run. We're going to have a brief panel, a half-hour panel, I should say, with an incredible group of experts in transportation. We'll allow some questions and answers to the broader group. And then we're going to have breakouts, where there'll be 3 individual breakouts that you'll see in your screen below, of which you can join, meet some of your fellow peers, and discuss the topics that we are talking about today. You'll notice on your screen below that there are also poll questions, and we highly encourage you to answer those polls. We'd love to see how the industry is thinking about the most timely and topical information that we are presenting today. And also, if you do have questions that you'd like to ask, use the chat feature on the right-hand side of the page. We'll scroll to them later in the show. But I'd like to bring back my co-host, Beverly. Beverly, you're with us there? There you are, Beverly. You're there. Terrific to see you as always. Beverly and I go way back, and I think last year we were in the Venetian in Las Vegas doing this event, and look forward to doing that again very, very soon. But just a brief introduction to Beverly. Beverly joined Hitachi in 2017. It is an effort to broaden her work in industrial IoT and smart cities. She's currently Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer within Hitachi Global Digital Holdings. Prior to Hitachi, Beverly held positions as CCO of GE, VP and Head of IoT at Ericsson, and CEO of C-Level Consulting. Beverly is passionate about enabling cities, citizens, corporations, and the environment to utilize technology for long-term sustainable growth, efficiencies, productivity, and reliance. She's a good friend. If we can welcome Beverly to the show.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. And thanks all of you for joining us today. So I'm not going to say a lot of words. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Greg said, which is that mobility right now and the future of connected mobility is so important. Every one of our customers, whether they be in manufacturing, whether they be in energy, if they are a retail establishment, everybody is dealing with the mobility issues and how the intersection between sustainability, mobility, as well as city-centric living is coming together. And as COVID has hit, we've seen a lot of logistics issues as well. So when Greg came to me and talked to me about potentially sponsoring, I was like, of course, this is something that touches every one of us individually, as well as our customers. And what I hope is that as we see this resurgence from our 2020 experience and we go into 2021, that we're not going to just see a boom in each of the industries, but we're going to see how connected mobility is really going to bring not just efficiencies, but new markets, new ways of financing, new financial models, and really disruption within customers' bases to find new ways to do business with one another and new ecosystems. So as we get into that, you're going to get to hear some of the panelists today, all good friends of mine. I appreciate everybody joining and participating with Greg and I in the panel. I will talk to you guys afterwards when we do our breakout sessions, and I hope it's a great panel. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Beverly. Terrific. And we're excited to bring on our panelists now, our esteemed group who are all experts in different parts of the connected mobility and transportation. So it's great to see you all. Wow, 2021 and the now normal that we're talking about. I'd like to introduce each of you. I'm going to have you say just 30 to 60 seconds of what you do, because I know this audience wants to jump into this timely topic. And I'll first introduce all of you, and then I'll turn it to you to give a 30 to 60 second remarks. Dean Bushy, the Transportation and Mobility Subject Matter Expert at Hitachi. We have Kiva Allgood, Head of Internet of Things and Automotive at Ericsson. Michael Sherwood, the Director of Innovation and Technology at the City of Las Vegas. May Russell, the CIO of Ford Commercial Solutions at Ford, of course. And Samir Sharma, the Global GM, Smart Cities and Transportation for IoT Solutions at Intel. Terrific group, and welcome all. And Dean, I'm going to turn it to you first, my friend. If you could just briefly share a little bit what you're doing at Hitachi.
Sure, and thank you very much for having me on this esteemed panel. A fantastic group. I think you're going to really enjoy the discussion. Real quick, at Hitachi, I'm the transportation mobility subject matter expert across modalities, which hits what we're going to talk about today, from rail to shipping to air to intercity to personally owned vehicles. All those are modes of transportation that have greatly been impacted by COVID and will greatly be impacted by the connected cities. So my job is to advise Hitachi, provide expert advice, and co-create with some of these amazing companies that you're going to hear about today.
Thank you, Dean. Kiva.
Yes, thank you for having me. Definitely COVID has been both an accelerant and an inhibitor in a lot of ways. So I lead the IoT and automotive team at Ericsson, and it's all around connecting things in a secure fashion. So if you remember back from the day before cell phones, we're seeing that same transformation in the automotive and transportation industry. And super excited to have a conversation with the group here today to really share how connectivity plays really the foundational role across all the different companies, for sure.
Thank you, Kiva. My friend Michael.
How you doing, Greg? Thank you for letting me be here today. Las Vegas, I don't think I need to say too much about Las Vegas. Everybody knows where we're at. A lot of what we're working on, though, is just how we're going to be inclusionary, how we're going to help with these different modes of transportation, and really opening ourselves up for more commerce in the future. So we're really excited, and it's great to be here today.
Thank you, Michael. Look forward to being with you in Las Vegas next year, or hopefully very soon. May, over to you, my friend.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on this panel. Really excited about it. So at Ford, we have an aspiration to be the #1 most trusted mobility company. Part of mobility is not just manufacturing and selling vehicles, but providing a seamless mobility journey for our customers. That includes our retail customers like you and I, our commercial customers as well. And a key part of that value proposition is the connected car and providing amazing digital experiences for our customers, both in the vehicle and outside the vehicle. I had been, up until most recently, focused on creating digital products and solutions for our customers, including ability to connect to the car, command, control, stop, find parking. So all the digital experiences that are off-board the vehicle. Most recently, I have focused on creating digital products and solutions for our commercial customers, police departments, large fleets such as Avis and Hertz, cities. They have tremendous demand and need to facilitate their mobility journey for their customers and have a lot of demands in terms of in-vehicle technology and off-board technology as well.
Thank you, May. And Samir.
Greg, a pleasure to be here. Folks, my name is Samir Sharma. As Greg mentioned, I'm the Global General Manager for Smart Cities and Intelligent Transportation at Intel. And it's my team's job globally to take all the assets we have at Intel and stitch them together into a single cohesive narrative and offering for our customers like Ericsson, like Hitachi, and many others. We really look at this as a data-centric opportunity with everything from edge to network to cloud. And the use cases span everything from mobility, which is the core topic of discussion today, to public safety, to resilience and sustainability. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'll be looking to learn as well as share some of the key learnings from our global experience.
Thank you, Samir. We're all going to learn today and look forward to diving in. I'm going to get right to it because Kiva sort of really hit the nail on the head in our calls leading up to this. And I mentioned that, COVID has changed everything in 2020 for all of us globally. In some ways, digital transformation has accelerated 10 years. And in many areas of transportation, COVID served as a decelerant. I'd love for each of you, and I'll start with you, Kiva, to kind of share your point of view about how you see COVID affecting the transportation industry.
Yeah, I think for each individual, it might be different. I think if you are in the US where public transportation isn't necessarily as readily available and you relied on your individual vehicle, it isn't as strong of an impact per se as if you don't even own a vehicle. And you really did rely on public transportation as your, main mode of transportation. I think the fact that we've changed the way of working, and commuting has also changed. I know for my family, my mother's been doing Zoom calls now, and she doesn't even have an iPhone, or hasn't really connected to the internet in that way. So her behavior's changed. She's not very likely to go back to the same behavior from before on traveling all the time. She finds it extremely convenient to be able to connect with family in a new way. So I think, again, depending upon what your previous behavior was and what you used for transportation and the impact of COVID in your community, you're going to change your behavior. I don't think we're ever going to go back. We're never going to go back to the day where my mom doesn't know how to use Zoom, right? Now she does. So she's going to change her behavior. She no longer drives. So I think, public transportation for her, she was a huge Uber and Lyft user. And so I think, once COVID's over, is she going to go back to using Uber and Lyft the same amount that she did before? Probably not. But I do know that, the foundation for a lot of these applications, and I loved hearing Mike's comment around trying to create and innovate new services. There's been a lot of new services that have popped up that are leveraging connectivity in brand new ways. And 5G is going to accelerate that because it increases your ability to have higher throughput. So you can video game from just about anywhere. You can video conference from just about anywhere. And you now have laptops and computers that are coming not only with Wi-Fi, but also cellular connectivity. Same thing with the vehicle. So the vehicle is going to become that next multimodal transportation, as we were talking about before. People are taking their vacations in vehicles now in a much more robust way than they ever did in the past. They may find that they love that, or they may find that they don't. So I think some behaviors are going to stick, and I think some people will go back into the old way. But for sure, it's accelerating people's openness to try new things, which means it's accelerating their willingness to also look at new business models and new apps and new services. So I think it's going to be an accelerant in that space as well.
Thank you, Kiva. May, I want to turn it to you next because you're sitting right in the heart of automotive country, and I want to get your perspective of how COVID has affected the transportation industry and Ford.
However, one of the interesting trends that I think you have alluded to and the panelists have alluded to is increased reliance on your vehicle, and not just in terms of the ride-sharing trend, which obviously everybody knows was on the increase the last few years. COVID has certainly seen a trend towards more time in your own vehicle, whether it's to vacation, more time running errands. So along with that comes significantly more needs of customers and aspirations in terms of the features and services they look for in and off their vehicle. Everything from entertainment, gaming certainly in vehicle as you take long trips, children, teenagers are gaming more and more, especially in quarantine. They want that to carry over into the vehicle. Certainly streaming services such as Netflix and other entertainment services are really a key features that customers are looking for, especially on these long haul vacation rides. Safety features, the more time customers spend in a car, the more safety features they look for, digital safety features, from secure my asset to in-cab coaching, tell me how I'm driving, tell me how my child is driving, to digital assistants, help me facilitate and navigate my life more seamlessly, help me book services, help me pay for services, including e-commerce, help me find parking, help me pay for parking, help me order a Starbucks, where should I go pick up this Starbucks? So everything that really makes their lives easier, provides them with safety and security in their vehicle, and provides entertainment to the passengers is going to be key. And kind of figuratively underwriting all of this is more increased bandwidth and 5G. This will require a tremendous amount of connectivity and bandwidth in order to enable all of that. I also don't want to forget our commercial customers, which are a really key segment for any automotive maker. So, more and more small businesses, those in the skilled trades, those in logistics and transportation are really considering their vehicle their office, right? There is not the concept of an office for many of them. So the types of digital products and services that they need in the vehicle is also going to grow exponentially, from help me communicate with my customers, help me schedule, reschedule, help me invoice, and the fleet managers that manage those skilled tradesmen, those transportation logistics will also need digital products and services that they can access remotely. So we're going to see continued emphasis and growth in both the retail and commercial space in terms of providing increased connectivity and increased services both in and out of the vehicle.
May, that was terrific kind of synopsis. I think we could probably spend a full hour on everything that you and Kiva just discussed. We'll do it as a part 2, but we have so many other questions, and I want to serve the next one up to Mike. Pete Buttigieg, as I mentioned in the intro, is going to be the new head of our Department of Transportation here in the U.S., and his long-awaited strategy will create a national Vision Zero plan. We'll charge drivers more for use of the roads, build more public transit, and create sustainable infrastructure jobs. What are you looking forward to, and what do you expect from the new administration coming in next week?
Wow, great question, Greg. I mean, there's so many things, but we're already working on a lot of things. You've heard of the Boring Company. We already have a new mode of transportation, currently just under the convention center complex, but we're looking at extending that from the convention center to the airport, and then all the way to downtown to the Fremont Street Experience, which is the heart of Las Vegas. We're looking for increasing our infrastructure, just the roadway, and making our intersections more intelligent to help not only drivers, but pedestrians as well. We're seeing a lot more foot traffic. So we're really hoping the new administration continues on with sustainable infrastructure projects that will help us not just in moving people, but also in providing new opportunities and new commerce opportunities for the city itself.
Thank you, Michael. And Dean, what are you looking most forward to as the change in administration happens and some of these new transportation initiatives get rolled out?
Right. Well, we're looking at a lot of support for communities like Las Vegas and Orlando and all the communities around the world to grow and expand their EV market. So whether it's hydrogen-powered electricity or battery-powered electricity, I think you're going to see a lot of grant opportunities and a lot of support from the federal government and the state governments to enable people to travel and enable people to do renewable energies. We're also going to see some initiatives as far as passenger safety from the federal government as we go to these new enabling technologies and these connected communities and these connected cars that you're hearing about. The big push is going to be enabling these renewable energies to make cities more transparent, more connected, and more renewable.
Thank you, Dean. Samir, my friend, I'm turning it over to you. We're at the first virtual CES, which is always a showcase for self-driving and electric vehicle technology. But the progress with the technology tends to be incremental. As much as there's a lot of noise and buzz around the latest gadgets, it's slightly better LiDAR, smaller circuit boards, algorithms that create a smoother ride. Between the alphabet soup of technology, AI, IoT, and edge computing, tell us today, what is the most relevant in connected vehicles?
Great question, Greg. And for those who are curious about, the updates we shared at CES around autonomous driving, there were 3 sessions by Amnon Shashua, who is the CEO of Mobileye, which is an Intel subsidiary. But talking broadly to your question about AI, edge computing, IoT, I really think of them, if I can use an analogy, as ingredients for a recipe. And just like when you're cooking a recipe, you need just the right amount of different ingredients to come together. I think you have to think about the edge to network to cloud solution the same way. So it's not about picking one and hyper focusing on it. It's really about balancing them out and extracting what I call the 1 + 1 = 11 kind of a synergy. And that is really what you need to go from this journey we've been on, which is let's connect everything, to let's make everything smart, to let's make everything intelligent and autonomous. So autonomous is not just going to be limited to self-driving cars and passenger cars. I think we are finding aspects of intelligence and autonomy coming into commercial, into heavy machinery, into agricultural equipment, into mining. We are seeing it come on to autonomous traffic intersections. So I think this balance, this nice balance of computing at the edge is where the real action is, the activity is happening, and our ability to analyze and react to a situation real time, but also combining it with ubiquitous low latency connectivity with a 5G network, and then having the classic traditional ability to analyze stuff in the cloud. This is a very powerful combination. And what our customers are doing is they're actually increasing their investment with this perspective and asking us for help on creating interoperable building blocks. So pretty much like a set of Lego blocks, they can mix and match. And that's so critical right now in the context of COVID, is because future is uncertain. Things are changing quickly. So really the only thing you can do is instrument and adaptability in whatever you're building today. And we saw when COVID happened quickly that cities, entities that had invested in intelligent cameras, as an example, could literally do over-the-air updates and repurpose those cameras to do more than what they were traditionally doing for use cases like people counting, social distancing compliance, PPE compliance, crowd management. And that made a big difference between the old static infrastructure and the new semi-autonomous adaptable infrastructure. So hopefully that paints a picture of why, despite all the challenges we are in, as I tell my team, never let a crisis go waste. We didn't choose to be in this crisis, but we can choose how to react to it, how to respond to it, and how to learn from it, and what things to take forward.
Such an important point, Samir, and this now normal is to stay positive and to take in all the information, but then use it to affect positive change. Kiva, I want to turn it to you because the Hans Vestberg of Verizon gave one of the keynotes here at virtual CES on 5G particularly. Okay, we hear a lot about 5G. Some folks say we're moving to 6G. I won't say who in the United States says that, but let's stick to 5G for a second. And, at Ericsson in particular, you're really an expert in this space. What do you see 5G bringing tangibly to the connected transportation industry?
Great question. I mean, I think, 5G is another acronym or term you can put into that alphabet soup. But what I think all of the things the panelists have noted is it's the collection of that information, and it's the knowledge sharing across a single foundation and platform. And that platform is cellular connectivity. A lot of the use cases today are enabled with 4G, but to get to that next level, to get to autonomy and virtual twins in the sky, whether that's a micro helicopter transporting people, or whether that's an autonomous vehicle taking your family from A to B, you have to have low latency. It has to be secure, and you have to be able to have the throughput. So, I think May said it well. All of those use cases today, we have a modified version of them over 4G. So waiting for 5G shouldn't be an excuse to innovate and try today. Get out there. If your business is trying to figure out how do they transform an old process into a new process, or come up with a new, the technology does exist today. But what 5G does is 5G really creates that ubiquity that you need to be able to provide the service level to ensure the highest quality at the highest security level needed for some of these new applications. So we've all are forgiving on our phone when it doesn't work. But if you're in a car accident, you need to make sure that you can make a 911 phone call. You need to make sure if it's a vehicle talking to infrastructure that there's no way to break that connection or interrupt that connection. If it's a medical device or an ambulance, or you're looking at a first responder, which is a drone, it needs to be secure and needs to be, the highest throughput with the lowest latency as possible, and 5G enables that in a very practical way. So to me, it's an enabler, and the technology is available. Now, I think it's the adoption of those technologies and some, I'd say the innovation around leveraging that to create all these things that the panelists have been talking about, to deliver those services to either an enterprise or to a consumer.
Thank you, Kiva. May, I want to turn it to you next as we talk about 5G and the connected consumer. And I know you do work both on the consumer side and also on the commercial side. But we've seen over the past couple of years, it's really been accelerated in 2020 under a pandemic. the prioritization of technology in the purchase decision of automobiles. As you mentioned in kind of your intro, that many individuals are spending more time in their vehicles today than they were pre-COVID. I have to say that I just spent about an hour driving around previous to this call in my car. What do you see as the evolution of connectivity in the vehicle? And I want to hone in on a couple of areas that you mentioned, gaming and e-commerce, as kind of areas that you're seeing increase as the cars move more towards autonomy, as we're spending more time in the car. At Ford and yourself, how are you thinking about kind of features that you're creating for your customers? What are they clamoring for today?
That frictionless experience is so very important, and COVID has accelerated that, in that people don't want to get out of the car to pay. They don't want to get out of the car to transact. So how can we facilitate all of that within the vehicle? How can we facilitate paying for your gas, paying for your parking, paying for food, all within the console and the human machine interface that's within the vehicle, and have that connect to the cloud and have it connect to a network of partners that enables that. That is a really, really key feature. It's a practical feature. It's a frictionless experience feature that customers were looking for pre-COVID, certainly post-COVID, with the emphasis on social distancing, with the emphasis on hygiene, and probably increased emphasis on hygiene, not wanting to transact in cash, not wanting to transact in credit cards, not wanting to transact with a human, but a function of spending a lot of time in your car, really enabling that, and being able to do that with digital assistants, being able to do that with voice commands, not just with a touch screen and interacting physically with your car. So it's really taking kind of the everyday customer journey and really understanding where we can eliminate the friction points, the touch points with other people, with machines, with equipment external to the vehicle, and how do we enable that in a very natural way, in the same way as you might within your house with something like an Alexa or a Google Home, etc. So that is really kind of our journey, our incremental journey. We do a lot of that. We need to continue to do more and more and more.
Thank you, May. Michael, I want to turn it to you. We have a question coming in from the audience. And here's one from Dan Height. With COVID, local and state budgets have been greatly impacted all over the country, including in Las Vegas. How will that accelerate public-private partnerships, and what impact do you see this having specifically on privacy?
Well, obviously we've done a lot of work with a lot of partners up until the pandemic and even through the pandemic. So the ability for cities and local governments to continue to do these public-private partnerships is only going to accelerate, I think, even more. Privacy is a huge issue, and a lot of the things we do internally here, we're not keeping any personal identifying information. That's just our stance as a local municipality. And so we don't share anything personally, and we don't store any data personally. But that's going to continue to be and we're in the very early stages of this public-private data sharing partnerships, using city infrastructure to partner with private entities. And I think those are going to be challenges as we move forward, but we're going to have to get through those, and if we're going to be able to take advantage of all the technology that's out there. And so it's really going to be a role for the political arm of government to be able to work together, the elected leadership, to be able to direct the employees, such as myself, on how we're going to do that. What are we going to keep, and how are we going to, in turn, share citizen information that might be collected through public infrastructure?
Thank you, Michael. Dean, I want to turn it over to you next, because in our chats, there's interesting conversations being had about inside the vehicle or transportation. There's also interesting conversations on what's happening outside the vehicle. When you think about city infrastructure or furniture, how is that going to be affected by the transition to autonomous or electric vehicles? Give us your perspective.
Well, I think they're both very important. As we've heard, COVID changed the nature of how people view transportation. I think we're always going to have this social distance mindset now. So as May was saying, the ability to travel safely and securely and live in your vehicle or virtually live in your vehicle and be connected is very important. But also what's important is what's happening outside of the vehicle. As Samir was talking about, it's a data-driven approach. You have all these sensors. You have connected rail, you have connected buses, you have connected cars, you have connected pedestrians with their cell phones and their wearables. You have micro mobility solutions, and then you have connected infrastructure, V2V, V2X, V2I. All these are data points that are happening in the city and around the countryside. And if you can collect this data, ingest the data, and do some data analytics, and then provide a solution outside to those first responders, to the traffic management systems, to the people that are using the transportation systems, that's where connected cities become very important. So I'm excited about both, but as you look at what's happening outside, where you have cities like Las Vegas, where they're very forward thinking and they're looking at connected cars and connected transportation systems, or Orlando, where they're looking at alternative fuels and connected cities and connected transportation systems, that's where the real benefit to these data mining sensors all over the place will happen.
Thank you, Dean. Michael, I want to just mention, Dean just mentioned Las Vegas, and you teased the Boring Company, of course, Elon Musk's tunneling venture. I think everybody knows who Elon Musk is in the group today. Elon is planning a massive citywide expansion of your underground transportation system that it's building in Vegas. Proposed new tunnels would make it possible to go from the convention center to Mandalay Bay in 3 minutes, as opposed to 30 minutes by surface roads. I know that will help us at all future CESs. You've also developed systems for autonomous vehicle shuttles, as well as drones. Wow, that's a lot going on within one city. How do you prioritize those opportunities that are available with respect to transportation with so many options available? And second part to that question is that unique to Las Vegas, or do you think that other transportation leaders that are in the audience today can model their cities after your work?
Well, obviously, I think we're unique. Las Vegas is unique. We're the entertainment destination of choice. And so a lot of these projects, are they unique just to Las Vegas? No, I think Las Vegas always sets trends. And again, in technology, and especially in certain smart city aspects, we do a lot of work. We put a lot of investment and time into these things. I think the Boring Company is just going to be another opportunity. And we have a great team throughout the Las Vegas region. It's not just one entity, it's several entities working together. But I think the things that are going to change most is we're working on a private LTE network or private 5G network that's going to really give our ability to put sensors throughout the city. That kind of ability, it's going to be very helpful. And then we've been working on, as you've noted, on our Go Med shuttle. And we've been working with autonomous vehicles since 2016, 2017. We had the first one to drive in mixed flow traffic. So now we're actually taking that and we're going after things that will benefit the community. So our next shuttle will be called the Go Med shuttle, and it will interlink doctors' offices along with our hospitals in our medical district, allowing people to be able to move freely throughout the medical district, whether it be going to a hospital, x-ray, or a doctor's office in the area. So all these things I think are repeatable and definitely capable of being done in other cities. I just think, our unique ability to have this influx of people, the normal population here, a little under 3 million, when CES comes here, you're adding 500,000 additional residents. So these type of systems, we can help model them, test them, and it gives us a lot of capabilities. And the other things we've been working on is drone deliveries. We have a couple delivery systems now that we've been testing with some private vendors and continuing to make some traction, working on some legislation that we'll need to put through. But again, I think everything we're doing here is just, models that others can follow.
Thank you, Michael. Certainly interesting times. Kiva, I want to turn it back to you because, concept vehicles of various designs and approaches are being introduced to the public, along with these announced partnerships as the autonomous vehicle ecosystem expands globally. And of course, you're in Europe. Partnerships and investments are becoming more intricate and more intertwined as business entities look to minimize future risks. At Ericsson, what type of new partnerships and business models do you expect to emerge over the coming year?
Yeah, I mean, I think May's comment around frictionless. So if you start to think about the enablement and the V2X, V2I, paying for services, sharing of services, I think those are going to become embedded. I also believe prepay. So if you start to really think and innovate around leveraging cellular technology anywhere in the world, we're able to travel the globe today and use our phones because there's standardization and interoperability. So I think there's going to be a lot of innovation around that, so that business models can continue regardless of where you go. So you'd like to watch your Netflix when you get to India. How do you prepay for that so that when you land you have access? You don't have to go find another SIM card. You're able to automatically authenticate on the network and get access to the content that you enjoy. So really being able to take that ubiquity anywhere you go, from services to access, and making it as frictionless as possible. So I think you'll start to see more unique partnerships there that really drive what I'd say the GSMA and the cellular industry is driven within cellular. You're going to start to see that in other industries as well. You're already starting to see it in transportation for sure. You're going to start to see it in, I'd say, city infrastructure, and it's that collaboration. So as you really start to think about private-public partnerships, the technology exists, the business models are emerging, but it's going to require interoperability and standardization to make it really happen.
That's a great point, Kiva. And Samir, I'm going to turn it to you on the notion of standards. This is a question coming from our audience, Douglas Kedlicek. What sorts of standards are being created around connected mobility? We talk about all these different types, these different modes of transportation. Do standards bodies exist within this ecosystem of drones and trains and planes? And are they being created to develop cross-industry mobility options?
I can see a number of my fellow panelists smiling because all of them have been in conversations where this question comes up. And I wish I could give a pointer to a single stop shop that defines all the different standards that come together at a city level, at the transportation infrastructure level. The reality is this stuff is too complex and touches too many aspects of our lives and our infrastructure for there to be a single stop shop. Having said that, I think there's a lot of good work happening at different levels of the solution stack. So if you look at this from a government perspective, NIST in the US is doing some good work around standardizing some of these things. If you look at IEEE, they've got some guideline papers that loosely define what the interfaces will look like. The way I like to describe the standards and interoperability, I used the Lego block standards earlier. I also think in terms of data and APIs as sort of doors and windows. Everybody can build their own house, but you want to standardize how the information is flowing between these different modules. And I think that's where some of the most fascinating work is happening, because we've got things like virtualization, containerization, software-defined networking. Each one of these is standardizing to some level how data gets exposed and utilized and transported between these different modules. The final thing I would say is I think this is also an area where, especially as a new administration comes, certainly in the US, I think there's an opportunity for the government to reach out to the private sector and sit with us and look at the regulatory frameworks and accelerate, or at the least, prevent the regulatory restrictions from becoming a decelerant to the adoption of technology. So I wish I had a simpler, straightforward one-line answer. The reality is doesn't exist. But on the positive side, I think there's a lot of good, tremendous work happening. And if folks are interested, I'm certainly happy to reach out to me, and I'll be, I can share some pointers to the work we see that's very, very promising. But a lot of work ahead of us, and probably one of the biggest things for us to collectively solve in the coming months and years.
Thank you. I'm going to ask May another question from our audience, and this one from John. Emergency response, which is critical. It's always a critical need, even more of a critical need. When it comes to emergency services being one of the key areas that consumers are willing to share their data with first responders, how is Ford gap between connected mobility tech and the public safety?
Yeah, so it's really interesting you bring that up. A couple of years ago, we actually had an initiative to begin to take a look at that. How might we use the signals and sensors off of the vehicle that indicate a crash event has occurred, be able to provide that via an API to first responders, and in order for them to A, be alerted that the crash has occurred, B, the severity of the crash so that they can send the right response unit, or they can equip the hospitals or figure out what kind of hospitals, level 1 trauma, et cetera, that they should be routing the passenger to. And the underlying technology is available. Part of the challenge, and back to perhaps Dean's point, is we have our state and our federal and our municipalities, our townships, et cetera, are very, very regionalized. There is not necessarily a standard set of infrastructure across the board that allows us to deploy these solutions at scale. That really enables us to have that consistency. So it's not that it's not possible from a technology perspective. I think it becomes an organizational challenge, not just for private enterprises and for-profit companies and nonprofit companies, but also from a regulatory perspective and from a state and federal perspective in order to enable that. So I think this is certainly an area that collectively as a society we need to keep progressing, which is the collaboration between private and public, the exchange of information. The data is there, the technology is there. We can make people's lives better. We can save lives. We just need to work better together to come up with holistic end-to-end solutions.
Thank you, May. We have about 3 minutes left in this part of the program, and then we're going to move to breakouts. And gosh, I wish I had you all day because there's so much to discuss, and you've already shared so much wisdom already. But I'm going to ask each of you before we head into breakouts. So let's try to keep it to 30 to 45 seconds so we can kind of get through this section. And Dean, I'm going to start with you. For this audience today, again, beginning of the year, virtual CES always sets the tech agenda for the year. What is the biggest business opportunity in transportation in 2021 and 2022 that you see?
Well, I really do think the transportation industry is going to come roaring back once we have a handle on the safety aspects of COVID. But I think the key is co-creating, getting these companies like Intel and Ford and these other companies that we've heard together to solve problems that we all have a piece of. And once we co-create these solutions, we can bring them to the public much better rather than going out individually.
Thank you, Dean. I'm going to ask Kiva your thought on the biggest business opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be around the frictionless side of things. So I think even after COVID, people are going to be apprehensive with regard to public transportation touching things. So how do you enable people to get from point A to point B, to get services from point A to point B in a frictionless way that's also environmentally healthy and safe? So I think you're going to start to see a lot of apps and services pop up there.
Thank you, Kiva. Samir.
I think both Dean and Kiva shared some very good ideas. I think Dean hit it on the head and the nail on the head. I think 2021 and 22 will be the time of partnerships. Partnerships have always been critical, but I think you're going to see the elevation of the right partnerships become a key determinant for your business success. And here's why. I think things around us are changing even faster than they have ever in the past. And I think folks who have the right co-travelers, these co-travelers have capabilities that, for example, Intel may not have. For example, we don't make the end products. We're almost always Intel inside. So we need the right partnerships to build those end-to-end solutions and have our partners be the actual ones providing that to the end market. So I think the biggest business opportunity is going to be a combination of right partnerships with the right business model. And you're going to see innovation on that front like never before, starting in 21, but sustaining beyond that.
Thank you, Samir. Michael.
I'm just going to keep building. They've already done it. Kiva, Shamir, Dean. Look, it's going to be public-private partnerships, key to getting things done. I'm going to steal Samir's Lego blocks. We got to have common interfaces, not just among regions, not just among states, but across the nation in order for the private companies to be able to work with us. And between those two things, frictionless everything, including frictionless government.
And May, take us home. Your thoughts on biggest business opportunity for mobility and transportation over the next year?
So I think there's two. The first is one we haven't touched on so far, but electrification and the infrastructure around electrification and the customer experience around the electrification is going to be extremely key. More and more automakers are introducing more electric vehicles and bigger electric vehicles as well. And combine that with the trend of customers to travel further as a result of habits formed during COVID, that's going to become really key and critical. I think partnerships as well, just to build on everything that everyone has said, are key. And we've demonstrated over the last 12 months that companies and cities can collaborate to innovate and create things quickly at times of crisis. We saw non-traditional companies such as Ford, such as GM, make PPE equipment and ventilators with collaboration with 3M and others that know how to do that. So not just learn how to do it from others that know how, such as 3M, but organize a workforce, organize assembly lines, logistics, procurement in order to get those out the door. That is remarkable when you really think about it. So we have the capability in order to collaborate, innovate, and deliver. So hopefully that will carry through in non-crisis times as well.
Such important points. Thank you to this incredible team. We've got more. So hang on the screen below, you'll see your breakout groups, and we encourage everybody to join. There's going to be more discussions led by the Hitachi team, and then we'll come back here for a quick wrap up at the end, and we'll see you in about a half an hour. Welcome. Hello, Beverly, back again. I hope you had some great conversations. I jumped in and out of the rooms, and it seemed like there was some really engaging dialogue going on. Beverly, what struck you from your conversation and from the panel?
Well, we talked about multimodal, and we talked about a transportation from both a freight as well as a human element. So passenger as well as freight, moving people and things from place to place. And I just have to tell you, we have a lot of riddles and we didn't figure them out in our half hour. We have a lot more to do though in the future, I can tell. And I think that my favorite part of this conversation is that everything we talked about today funnels into these real life questions that we want to come up with answers with. So as people are thinking about what that ecosystem needs to look like, what we need to do to enhance those industries, how we're going to solve these giant logistics, transportation, all of these different problems, the circular economy, I want to be part of those conversations. I know Hitachi wants to be part of those conversations, and all the speakers today are part of those conversations. So feel free to reach out to us, to send questions, or if you have ideas, let's get on a call and talk about it. Greg, thank you so much for letting us sponsor. It's been really a great day.
Thank you, Beverly, and it's really my pleasure. And as you shared, this is an industry challenge, and we're all in it together, and there's tons of opportunity for us. We had such an incredible discussion today, and I wish it could have gone on longer. As Kiva mentioned in the beginner, where COVID did mobility industry, and also a challenge, a decelerant. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to figure out how do we accelerate out of this challenging time that we're in together. But there's a new Department of Transportation that's coming in, a lot of optimism coming in and funding coming in to the economy. And so we're excited about those changes. As I talked about in the very top of the hour, connected transportation and mobility, other industry in the world. And so these conversations are critical for us to figure out public-private partnerships, for us to figure out the individual subsectors that are going to be affected, and to get all of the top business and thought leaders in the public sector together on a more regular basis to work through Beverly for being a terrific partner, and to Dean as well, and Hitachi for being part of this conversation, and to our incredible panelists that we have. Of course, Dean Kiva Allgood from Ericsson, Michael Sherwood from the A. Russell from Ford, and Samir Sharma from Intel. Pleasure to be with you all today. We wish you, and we'll see you again very soon.